Good morning. I'm Tami Wilkerson Warford. I'm the human resource generalist here for our marine business unit at Yamaha Motor Corporation. I also work very closely with our people and culture, which was formerly diversity, equity, and inclusion within our organization. I too work with our internship program, work very closely with our recruiters as well, so much so that I've just recently started to dive into a bit more recruiting from an HR generalist standpoint for engineers within our organization. I am also responsible for making sure that we have great partnerships with these schools in our local community. Yeah, my
Awesome.
hands are in everything, honestly. So,
I have been in the university recruiting space, early careers recruiting space now for 5 years, and I've been doing internship program management for 6 or 7 probably. I currently work at Southwire company. We are a manufacturer of wire and cable, and I love helping students learn and grow and figure out what they want to do with their careers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Segura, and I'm a talent acquisition partner at Grady Health System, or Grady Memorial Hospital, which is probably what everybody knows it by. I do university recruiting as well. That's hilarious. And I also help out with our student nurse externship and our RN residency program, which is also a program for new grads. So I do a lot of university relations and also just working with new grads, getting them into Grady's system.
Tell us about your career path and how did you end up in your current role?
so much like Catherine, love what I do. Absolutely love being a resource for humans. After college, in all honesty, what I realize is I've been in various positions in the HR space. So I started out at the General Board of Pension and Health Benefits for the United Methodist Church. So working with the ministry piece, I think that's really interesting. But that was more of a retirement space, still human resources and benefits. From there, I transitioned to a third party administrator for leave and absence benefits, and did other benefits from that space as well. Then my life took a turn and I ended up moving to Maryland, the DMV area, where I worked for an organization called Military One Source. We worked with the Department of Defense and really providing support for wounded warriors, veterans, their spouses. It was more of an EAP. And if you, again, in HR, Employee Assistance Program, again, providing resources for those, for that population. Once that contract was up, I did end up moving here to Georgia, where I absolutely love it. And I found myself knowing that like I'd explored these different places, and of course I've done a little here, done a little there, in between those in between those pit stops. I found myself here in Georgia, and I worked for Kindred Healthcare, and there I was a HR analyst, and that was just a title, but literally it was an HR team of like 5, and we did everything. At that point, I wasn't even certified, but I was very well versed in HR. But again, not certified. It wasn't until I started here at Yamaha Motor Corporation where I said, you know what, let's take this thing a bit more serious. You know that you love being a resource for humans. You've been doing that since you could actually work. You've always been customer centric, and really concerned about like the environment and the culture of places and spaces, and this is the best place to be able to affect that. So let's, hunker down and make it make sense, and take it a bit more seriously. So I've obtained my SHRM certification, my SHRM CP, my certified diversity professional since I've been here, and also I've become a certified professional coach. While I've been here, I have too worked with our leave of absence. I've worked with onboarding, offboarding, HR business partner, DEI, every aspect of HR. I think I've had my hands in since I've been here, with the exception of payroll because I don't mess with anyone's money. So, but yeah. So yeah, I think that like I said, very early on, just customer service, knowing that I wanted to be a resource for humans and make sure that I had a positive impact when I interact with people. And in any space that I touch. So I think that's really what's catapulted me to do the work that I do here. I love it. And yeah, they're going to have to kick me out of here.
So my career path, I feel, is a little bit different. I started off in ministry, actually working at a church, and I did some work overseas as well. And I got to a point where I realized that this wasn't actually what I wanted to do, which was really hard, right? When you feel like you're doing something, so important. But I realized, I needed to make some changes for myself personally. And so decided to move into corporate world, and in the role that I had working in ministry, I worked with college students, high school and middle school students. And so my sister actually got me in touch with the university manager at the company that I started working at. And we went and had just an informational coffee where I asked her a lot of questions and we chatted and got to know each other. And at the end of it, she said, "I have a job. Do you want it?" And I was like, "Yeah, yes, of course." So it was a pretty easy transition for me because I had already been working with students. And so just having to learn the recruiting aspect, corporate aspect, going from ministry into corporate was a very different transition. And then I thought after a while, I kind of want to go into corporate recruiting, and I was commuting pretty far. So I decided to move somewhere that was a little more local to me. And I did, more seasoned professional recruiting for about a year and realized I didn't really like it. I liked university recruiting. I liked early careers. So started looking for a job to transition back into that. And that's where I found Southwire. And I've been here for 3 years now, and it's been absolutely wonderful. It's such a wonderful company to work for. And I still feel really fulfilled in the job that I do.
So my journey is a tad bit different. I actually started off, I've worked ever since high school. So I started off as a cashier at Dunkin' Donuts during high school. And then after I graduated, I wanted to go to college. However, I did not attend college. So I just continued to work at Dunkin' Donuts. And eventually I became a store manager and got 2 stores. And then I realized working 6 days a week is not for me and not for my family unit. So my cousin actually, her job was hiring, which was at, y'all are from Noonan, which is funny, or I know, well, Catherine, you're like, y'all, Catherine and Tami, y'all are kind of south. Are y'all south with Yamaha? Y'all are north? Okay. Well,
I'm
there's a
north.
Yamaha. I'm from Noonan. I'm sorry. I'm going off script, but
Yeah.
there's a Summit Urgent Care. They were hiring. So I went and worked there and I did occupational medicine billing. So I was in billing in the back. And then I worked my way up to being a team lead. And then from there I became the manager of occupational medicine billing. And I did that for a couple of years. While I was in billing, I really realized that I don't care for billing that much, but what I did care for was leading a team. I love people. I love making sure they enjoy their work environment. I'm one of those people that's like, well, we're here so much time together and may as well make it as enjoyable as possible. And I also like advocating for myself and for others. So advocating for my team, I really take that as a personal responsibility as a leader. So in that role, I decided to go out for an HR role, which was our people and culture leader. So I went out for that role with our new company. I mean, with the company, I got that role, and then I was in that role for about a year and a half. And just due to some personal reasons, I decided to resign from the role, and I took a break from corporate. Actually, I didn't know if I was going to go back into healthcare, but my boss found me on LinkedIn and asked me if I would like to come interview for a people and culture manager at Grady, and I got to do all the interviews, and then y'all, I didn't get a call. I got a call back, but the call was that I didn't get the job. So that was a little, I was like, oh gosh, and I love Grady. When I first walked in and I met the VP of HR and I met the CHRO, I was like, this is a place for me, but I guess it's not gonna work out. But 2 weeks later, my boss messaged me and she was like, I have this role that we were saving for you that we think you'd be a great fit for, which is the university recruiting. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And I think it's just my transferable skills. I'm a very like people person. I'm very motivated, highly driven. So just some of those transferable skills that she saw from my other roles and the other things that I did, she thought they would be great in this role. And I love doing what I do. I love helping people find their place in the healthcare system. It's another form of advocacy for me. So I just love it. And I love what Grady does for the community. That makes it 1,000 times better. I get a sense of pride when I'm on the highway and I see a Grady EMS truck up and down the highway. It's just like, I work there. My son knows mommy works at Grady, the Grady curve. I love it so much. So that's my journey.
What are some tips for making a resume stand out?
I certainly would have to echo what Karen is saying with regard to formatting. That is so important. The last thing I want to do is look at a resume and it's all over the place. Formatting is important. Aside from that objective statement, so many people miss with that statement. It doesn't really encompass who they are. Their passion doesn't shine through for me, or if they've applied to a position, if I'm reading this objective statement and it doesn't speak to how enthused you are, or doesn't tell me that you're even remotely qualified, if I just scan, you've lost me. Honestly, you got a good 10, 15 seconds for me to look at that resume. And if some things don't kind of stand out and I can clearly see without having to dig through that resume, I'm probably going to keep going.
I think it's really important to think about formatting. A lot of times what I see students do is they just go and pick a template off of Word. Please don't do that. Formatting is going to be super key to helping you make sure that you are able to put as much on your resume as you possibly can, but it's also really going to help make your resume easy to read for people who look at resumes all day long. There are days where I can look at over 100, sometimes even 200 resumes in a day. And so having it formatted appropriately is really helpful for me on my end. I think the other tip that I give students is a lot of times students make the mistake of putting what they did on their resume instead of what they accomplished. So, you may have been, working in a restaurant and, oh, I just waited tables. So you put waited tables, but you increased customer satisfaction by, however much percent, and you were able to create an amazing dining experience for your team members. That's what you accomplished. It's not just about what you did. I think also too, metrics are really important. So, if you've had an experience, an internship or something like that, make sure to add, increased profit by this much, decreased costs, things like that. So those are my two big tips for students, is make sure that you have good formatting, and then also make sure that you're putting what you accomplished and not just what you did.
I would say making sure that you are you don't have to make 12,000 different resumes, but if you have 5 resumes that are kind of the 5 job positions that you're kind of looking for and tailor your resumes to those job positions, that is very helpful. Also, making sure that when you're tailoring your job resume to the position that you're trying to apply for, making sure that you take the job description of the job, or you take kind of some of those hard and soft skills that are needed for the position, making sure those skills appear in your resume. It helps the applicant tracking system be able to read your resume a little bit better. It also helps us to make sure that you're aligned with the job role, just seeing like, if we're looking for, I don't know, you know how to use a certain type of application system, or you know how to use a type of platform, making sure that's included in your resume, or the ones that are most commonly used, making sure that's included in your resume. Those are very helpful, especially because a lot of people are moving towards helping, like having AI help them with reading resumes, or the systems, because we have so many applications that come in, helping the system scan, make it easy for the system to pick up your resume and say, this is a candidate that's a match. Now, just to clarify, that doesn't mean go into the job description and copy and paste word for word what they have on the job description into your resume. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, look at the qualifications, look at what the role encompasses, and what are some of the things that you know how to do that align with the job very well, that are the top qualities for that job, and make sure that you highlight those in your resume so that it's easier for us to scan, also for the system to scan, to say, this is the ideal candidate, let's move them forward.
What are some common mistakes people make during an interview?
I think what's most applicable to our job is knowing exactly what organization you are applying to, being well versed in, what the organization does. So take Yamaha Motor Corporation, for example. When people see Yamaha, they think pianos, but then they also think boats and motorcycles. Like, they don't necessarily know who we are and what we do. We have a financial services, branch as well. So if you are coming to, interview with us, we don't want to talk about pianos because that's not our business. That business is in Buena Park, California. We're not talking about putting things together because that's motor manufacturing and they're out in Noonan. Know that you're coming here to, talk to Yamaha Motor Corporation and what it is that we do. If you're looking at being an engineer, you're looking at being, host, what do you call it? An analyst of any kind. Make sure you know the organization. Bigger than that, show some interest and some passion. Do a little research. Have some talking points. Tell me something that will blow me away that you know about our organization. Let me know that you're really invested. You've dug deep and you dug on the right company. And, and you know what I mean? Like, you're prepared. You know that you're talking to Yamaha Motor Corporation as opposed to motor manufacturing or financial services. I think that's probably what sticks out the most to me here.
Not being able to give an elevator pitch. You're usually always going to be asked the question, tell me a little bit about yourself. That is an opportunity to walk someone through your resume. So, for me, I gave my elevator pitch a little bit earlier. I started off my career working in a different industry, but decided I wanted to make a change. And I started off at this company and made this change because of this reason. And then I moved to this company because of this reason. And I really love this, and this about my job. And oftentimes you see people kind of fumble with that because they haven't thought through what exactly they want this person to know about them. So when you're thinking about your elevator pitch, what do you want this person to know about you in terms of how you can do this job well? And think through that a little bit before you go into the interview. The other mistake I see people make all the time is not doing any research on my company, right? So if I ask you, why did you choose Southwire? Like, what piqued your interest? Well, I know you guys like kind of do stuff with like electricity, so I just thought that it would be really great to get some experience, and I'm just really looking for experience. No, sorry, baby. The best answers to that is, oh, well, in my research online, I saw that you guys make these products and I thought that was really cool. And then I looked at your company values, and your values of this and this really align with what I value. And so I would really love to work for a company that shares in these things and makes these really cool types of products. So knowing why you're interviewing with me, knowing why you're interested in my company, and then being able to give a good elevator pitch and explain why you would be a good fit for the role.
So some common mistakes that people make during interviews, I would say, is one, like Tami said, the passion. You just can't feel their passion, whether it's nervousness or whatever it may be. They're just not passionate about the company. I know here at Grady, that's huge. We work in healthcare, but also the community we serve is, you need to be passionate. Some hard days here at Grady, and people are at their worst, obviously, when they're coming through the healthcare system. So, it's not always happiness and a good day as far as the community we're serving. But also some things that I would say are people's elevator pitch. When they ask you to tell me about yourself, most people tend to ramble on a lot about just stuff that kind of does not pertain to the role or how they can help the company or be a benefit to the company. So really narrowing down your elevator pitch or your about me like your about me summary is a good way to make sure you start off the interview strong, letting them know how you connect to the role and how you're gonna be the best fit for the role. And also, usually they're gonna ask you about, do you have any questions at the end? You want to come prepared with at least 2 well-informed questions. So when I say well-informed, I mean, I don't want to hear about like, oh, when did Grady open? That's something you can find out on the website. You can go look that up. That's common. That's information that's out there on the website. You can find out about us. Some things you might want to learn about that aren't on the website may include like the company culture, the team dynamic. What are some of the pain points in the unit? Like those type of things are questions that aren't on the website, aren't well known, but it does show that you have interest and that you are really thinking about like how you can contribute to the environment, and how you can serve in this environment. So I would say definitely making sure you have your well-informed questions to ask at the end of the interview.
How can someone showcase transferable skills or non-traditional work experience?
So I think with Yamaha, we're big on passion, right? We have a passion for the outdoor lifestyle. And if you're a young adult, with no work experience or what have you, what are your hobbies? Are you passionate about water? Are you passionate about, motorcycles, getting your hands dirty, pulling things apart, putting them together? Let's talk about those type of things. You can put those kind of things, on your resume. Quite frankly, volunteer work. Show me that, you have, the ability to do something and not be paid for it, those kind of things are really important. Those are the type of things that we look for. If you were in school, we look at your projects. And to Catherine's point, not only that you did a project, but what did you actually learn from that? How did you contribute to that? Was there natural leadership within, that project? Did you take the lead? Did you serve as a support? How did you, use your critical thinking to, solve those problems within the project? So those are the things that we would be looking for, and that would translate for us on a resume if you didn't have work experience.
I think a lot of times we think about experience in terms of technical skills, but a lot of times people need to hire as much for attitude and cultural fit as they do for technical skills. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much coding you're able to do or how much this and this you're able to do. If you're a pain in the butt to work with, no one's going to want to work with you. So I think it's really great to be able to showcase your soft skills in your interviews and be able to showcase, emotional intelligence and communication skills and things of that nature. Because at the end of the day, if you are working on getting your first job, no matter where that may be or what type of career that can be, if you can showcase in your interview that you have the soft skills to be able to learn and grow and be moldable and also be a good person to work with, to be a good team player, that's going to make a huge difference for you in your interviews.
I agree with what the other panelists have said. I think also it's important to know that when you don't have a lot of experience and you don't have a lot of you don't have a lot of experience and you're really trying to rely on some of your transferable and non-traditional work experience, making sure you advocate for yourself is very important. So making sure you make use of, for instance, LinkedIn and those introduction calls that are on LinkedIn. Also making sure your LinkedIn speaks, because that's another form. Your resume is not going to be very robust if you don't have a lot of work experience, right? So one of the ways people do get to know you is through your LinkedIn. A lot of employers use LinkedIn. A lot of recruiters use LinkedIn to fill people. Use that platform or those platforms in order to advocate for yourself and network. I think the best way to be able to showcase those, especially with little to no experience, is actually getting in front of people and meeting people, because you're going to have to showcase them in person. You're going to have to talk to this person, kind of talk to them about your potential. I can read the ATS or whoever, I'm sorry, applicant tracking system is what I'm referring to when I say ATS. Or myself, when I'm reading over, I might say this person doesn't fit this criteria. Sometimes I can advocate and make exceptions or advocate for somebody. But the best thing you can do to showcase your experience is advocate for yourself, reach out to people, start building your network so that people can see you, the person behind the resume, so that they're more willing to say, I can see the potential in this person and what they've done with their little to no experience. Let's try to find somewhere, because I think they'd be a great add to the organization, or finding a role that may fit the experience they do have, just so we can get them in the organization. Because at the baseline of it all, regardless of the role, we're all just looking for great people to join our organizations. So that's the recruiter's mission. And as long as you're advocating, like I said, for yourself, networking, getting in front of people, you can always showcase those transferable skills and your non-traditional work experience in addition to what's on your resume.
What advice do you have for someone just starting their career?
First and foremost, I would say make sure you find your passion. When you start your career, if you are passionate about the work you do, it does not feel like work. And I know that sounds cliche, but it is really true. I love coming here. I'm a motorcycle enthusiast, also a marine enthusiast. Coming to work here does not feel like work. It feels like I'm coming here to contribute, and then I can leave and enjoy, right? So make sure that you find your passion. Stay hungry. Never stay stagnant. Just because you're doing something, don't think that you can't move forward and do, or, move sideways, laterally. Make sure that you just don't stay stagnant. You're always learning. Hungry, humble is the other thing I wanted to say. And I think, Catherine, you just touched on that. You always have room to grow. Is again, and I know I've said this 1,000 times, but that means getting on LinkedIn, learning and learning something new. Get on there and learn something new. There are plenty of, spaces out there where you can learn for minimal cost. And then just be nimble and be very flexible. Make sure that, you don't have yourself in a position where if you need to pivot, you can't. Never pigeonhole yourself. For me personally, I did that with just transitioning into HR generalist from being in a DE&I space. All of it still being HR, but I wanted to make sure that if and when there came a time that I personally wanted to pivot, I could do so. So make sure that you keep yourself nimble and very flexible, and you have that ability to pivot. Create balance. And to your point, don't live to work, but work while you're living is probably the best advice I could give the young adults. Don't feel like you have to get in here and grind so hard and stay until 9 o'clock at night. No, no. Because
Right.
if you die tomorrow, someone else is getting that job. I'm not saying that to say come in and, be lazy or don't give it your all or your best. Absolutely, we need you to do that. But I also want you to understand, know, trust, and believe that should something happen to you today, we will send your people flowers, and your job will be on LinkedIn in 48 hours. So make sure that you don't live to work, but you work while living.
Think outside the box. I never in my life thought that I was going to be working in manufacturing. Just that's never something that occurred to me, right? And when I was faced with the dilemma of I don't have a job, because I quit my job without having another job, which is something I would probably never do again. But you have to be willing to go and explore and see different things. And so if you're just starting out in your career, get the job that you need to get to make ends meet, right? But don't stop there, because you can explore and see lots of different areas and learn about lots of different things. And so thinking about how, manufacturing, a lot of people think engineers, right? But at the end of the day, you have to have support functions. You have to have people that do marketing. You have to have people that handle the finances, HR, right? So definitely think about different industries that you could be in, and think about, different career paths that you could take, because careers are never a straight line up. They're loopy, and sometimes you make moves that are lateral instead of moves that are up. And I've even seen people make moves that go down, right? So your career is going to be what you make it, but as long as you have an open mind and you think outside the box, there's no limit to where you could possibly go.
Well, I would just pretty much echo what is two ladies have said, which is, work-life balance, flexibility is very important. We discussed earlier, you may want to come in making 6 figures, and the manager or the director or whatever, that's your lifelong dream. But please understand that you may have to come in at the bottom of the total in order to get on your pathway that you're trying to get to. So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is make sure when you're defining your passion, I like to attach my purpose and my purpose, sorry, that in the company I work for to my passion. So what I guess I'm trying to say is, regardless of where I work, I know what my purpose and my passion are. So while I love Grady and I don't want to leave, we all know that layoffs happen, things happen, you may be separated from your job. I try to stay focused completely on my passion and my purpose, which is helping to serve other people, helping people to learn to advocate for themselves and creating, a good space for people mentally. So for me, that's my passion. I can attach that and I can do that at any company that I go to. I don't have to be at Grady to fulfill that passion. So making sure you just know what your passion is and your purpose is, and then using that throughout whatever may happen as far as whoever your employer is, because it will and it can fluctuate. And then I think that's actually about it.